What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Freddy and Friends. And today I have a very interesting guest. He's a conscious chef and breathwork guide. And he's become a good friend of mine and a very, very talented guy, Mr. Jeremy Strubel. What's going on, brother?
How are you? Thanks for having me, man.
I am good. Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming from Venice?
Yeah, Venice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been living out there for a little while now.
Past 3 years.
Past 3 years.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's going on? I haven't seen you in a few months. You came over and did a wonderful dinner for us in February, I believe.
Yeah.
And as usual, blew our minds, especially with my goofy and stupid dietary bullshit that I put you through.
That was fun.
Was it? Yeah, you don't have to lie.
That's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
You're being kind.
I'll accept the challenge.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, and you do, and I really like. That's why I like working with you on that stuff. But yes, I mean, I haven't seen you in a while. What's been new in your world?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of stuff going on beginning of the year and here in Los Angeles. So I think things are kind of kicking back in a little bit, picking back up, I should say. Yeah. And so just doing, private dinners and events and stuff like that. Yeah. And then working on the other side, which is, the breath work and doing those events and kind of gearing up to start doing more full day experiences.
Sure.
Day retreats and multi-day events with combining all of the different things.
Combine all the modalities into one. I think that's super cool.
Thanks.
And well needed, yeah.
Yeah.
And would you be doing that in Cali, or you would kind of take that concept and essentially could do it anywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I can do it anywhere for sure.
Yeah.
I'm focusing right now on, more of the local clientele. So, Central Coast is kind of where I'm looking at a lot of different venues for these types of things. Wow. That way it's still accessible to Los Angeles fairly easily. Yeah. So doing, that, but I can do these things anywhere, it just becomes logistics at that point, like anything else.
Exactly. Yeah. Is it just you, or do you have a little team that are like behind you?
It's more of like collaborations. Okay. So I have a very good friend, Marguerite, who I do herbal tea and breathwork ceremonies together with. Nice. And I have different groups of people that I'm working with to do different things and bring forth different events and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Cool. I know you're a modest guy. I mean, your chef career is pretty star-studded. You started in restaurants, I'm assuming. Well, take me there. Actually, you take me there. You started in restaurants, do this, you do that, and then you're working for celebrities. How does that happen?
Yeah, so I think, honestly, like it came out of lack of a better idea what to do when I'm like graduating high school, right? And it wasn't this thing where like, I always wanted to be a chef, it just was like, okay, well, what can I do? And I think there was a couple different life experiences that I had growing up that made me very comfortable in the kitchen kind of straight away.
Interesting.
And I think mainly, one of those was when I was 6, my mom and I moved out to Colorado with my stepdad. His family had a big ranch in the back of Old Snowmass and very outdoors life, hunting and fishing and, very hands-on with
hands-on
everything.
Fresh food kind of.
Yeah. So I think, breaking down my first elk when I was like 9 years old.
No shit.
Like
breaking down an elk at 9.
Just like he just bring it home and it's just like on the kitchen table and we're like, okay, here we go, grab a knife. So I think just being comfortable with those kind of things, and then my dad's side of the family is all Italian, so I think having that influence of every holiday and everything that we're doing, it's just everybody's in the kitchen and we're cooking, and it's just it was just a natural part of life at that point. So I think once I, got to culinary school, it was just something that just kind of became natural to me, and I was very comfortable kind of straight away. Wow. So I went to culinary school in Santa Barbara, which was just the city college there, the city college program. And that was a 2-year program. I was working in a little restaurant called the Wine Bistro in Montecito. Okay. We'd go to school from like 5:30 in the morning to 2:30, and then like go to the restaurant at like 3:30 to 11. Yeah. But you're like 21, so that's what you're supposed to be doing.
It's kind of how it rolls.
Yeah. So, and then I just decided to go to LA and just try to find the best restaurants that I could possibly find to work in. And I was very lucky to land a job at L'Hermitage here in Beverly Hills.
No shit. Okay, cool.
With, at that time, David Myers was the chef who owned Sona and and a couple other restaurants, and now he's doing big things. And Bastide was one of the big.
Yeah, these are all big name restaurants.
So at that time, I think too, it was a special time in Los Angeles because there wasn't a ton of these types of restaurants.
Yeah.
You know, I think LA was at a time where it was like, oh, it was San Francisco, it was New York, it was.
Yeah, the scene was building.
Yeah, so it was a cool time to be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so from there, I just, I went to San Francisco, I went to New York, and just worked in, pretty diverse experiences, from like the very small, like 40-seat fine dining Michelin star restaurant to like boutique hotels, and had a very like kind of interesting, diverse path in it. Yeah.
Were you the head chef at Winsom, or did you open that restaurant?
Yeah, I was a chef partner in Winsom.
You were a chef partner. So I just stumbled on that. It's really interesting because that was probably around 2015, 2016, or in that area. My wife and I were working on a magazine at that time, and that was one of the restaurants we reviewed. Obviously, we didn't know each other, but I just was, I was reading up on you again. I was like, Winsom, man, that was such a cool place. I thought it was such a, like, that particular time in LA was amazing for restaurants. Like 2015 through 18, maybe, amazing. Yeah. And then it started to get goofy again. But I found it really cool that you were a part of that, because I thought that was such a unique little spot.
Yeah,
what the hell happened there?
Yeah, it was a great project. We were able to do it, and I was with Med and Mark. They brought me on. They have a bunch of stuff out here now. Yeah. But they originally met them at when they were operating Spare Room at the Roosevelt Hotel where I was working, and just built relationship over the years. And then they brought me on for that project, and it was great. It was one of those things where I was able to design a kitchen completely from scratch.
Shit.
Basically, awesome. Like, here you go. Here's how much you got, 18 feet to work with, or whatever it was. Yeah. And so being able to design the kitchen exactly how I wanted it to go, and then design the menu around that and all of that. So I don't think you oftentimes get that chance.
No, that's super fun.
To be able to do it from ground up. Yeah. So I think that was great. And then it was a great experience all in all.
And then how long did you put in there?
It was only like a year and a half. It was a short run. Okay. Because I had moved to Hawaii. Ah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the story keeps unfolding.
Yeah.
So you moved to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I knew that one.
Yeah.
How did you start working as the private chef though, and then getting from you don't just leave a restaurant and then all of a sudden you're cooking for all these crazy people, right? Like how does that happen?
Well, there's a couple of things that happen. Some of it is like word of mouth and just relationships that you build with people that come into the restaurant, and then it's just kind of that. I think there's a lot of times downtime between restaurants. Yeah. So I think I would do a lot of private events during that time. Got it. But then there is agencies that you work with. There's different connectors like that. Yeah. And especially when you're going, when you're looking for work with the higher net worth, community, there's definitely there's a lot of agency that are bridged to that. So
you just leveraged what was out there and just made just worked it.
Yeah.
Do you think, I have a lot of private chef friends. I'm a huge food person, wine person, used to be in the restaurant business as well. So have a lot of people in this industry. And do you see yourself ever working in a restaurant again at some capacity, owning a restaurant, working in one? Do you miss, that action? Because a lot of guys transition out of that, right? And then they go into the private world and then whatever. But there's something special about being on the line as well.
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously great parts about being in a restaurant that I still love. Like, I'll go and visit people that are just, either they're old cooks or friends or somebody that are just opening a restaurant, and you go in there and you sit down and you it's all that buzz that's happening. And I think one cool thing about being on the line, it's like you're a musician, so it's like it's everybody's playing their piece,
their part to make this shit happen.
And sometimes it just becomes this beautiful song, and you don't even have to look at each other to know what where you're at and what's going on, and it just flows. And when you're in that flow moment and you have the right people around you, like, it's pretty amazing. you know, and I think it can be really fun. I think, you know, when I do think about going back in a restaurant, I think about that and don't think about everything else, you know,
being in the weeds.
Yeah, just being totally in the weeds every day. Like
every
that's,
day.
you know,
Buried.
every day you're going in the restaurant and, you know, you're putting your armor on and you're going to war in a sense, you know, like at Winsom, we did for brunches, we were doing like 350.
Holy shit.
350 covers out of like a 90-seat restaurant.
That's a tiny spot.
For brunch, you know,
brunch,
so it's just like every day you're just going in. And I think part of my, evolution in restaurants, though, I think a lot of me leaving restaurants just had a lot to do with just it wasn't healthy for me anymore. You know,
how so? I
think, you know, the stress and, you know, everything that I was just like putting myself through just wasn't the right. It just wasn't feeling right anymore. You know, after 18 years of going pretty hard, it just got to a point where it's just like, you know, you can call it burnout, you can call it whatever you want. I think I had a lot of underlining things that were happening, PTSD and anxiety and stuff that I wasn't really addressing. Yeah. Because you're just going hard every day, you know, and like you're just in that zone, you know. So I think me leaving restaurants it wasn't an easy choice, but at the same time it was just like, this is what I need to. It's what I
kind of had to happen for your health, essentially, for you to continue. Yeah. Like I said, I know a few things about working in restaurants, and I guess, so my experience, and this is going way back, this is 20 years ago. You know, I worked for a very, very prominent French chef in Philadelphia, who embodied that crazy, stereotypical, insane, fucking maniacal French restaurant thing that you would hear about. Yeah. I mean, I watched that shit go down nightly for many years, and I was appalled at that time in my life. I just couldn't. I was like a knockaround guy from Philly or whatever. This is like, you know, I'm in this restaurant with all these buttoned up people, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this guy's flipping out, cursing at people, hitting people with pans and shit. It was absolute insanity. I'm like, this is insane, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember that time in my life, and I just wasn't into it, but the money was great, right? So I was just taking the money. Later on in life, I had to go back to the restaurant business for some work, but this time it was in New York City. There was probably maybe a 6-7 year gap in between the time that I was working at that French place and when I went into more of a, I don't want to say corporate, it was actually a great restaurant in New York, but it was corporatized. So what I saw was more of what the guys still got in the weeds, but the kitchen was quiet. They weren't throwing shit at each other. There was none of this bullshit. And there was I was like, what is going on? Is this a restaurant? Like, where am I? Like, what is this? You know, there was none of that. I mean, it was mayhem where I worked before, right? But so are many places. But at some point, you know, that industry buttoned itself up because it was literally killing people, you know, and especially back at the house. I mean, it's just wild back there. And they implemented way more policies, way more rules, way more regulations, and tightened up that shit. And now you could go into restaurants in the kitchen. It's like I said, it's super quiet. They have music on. I was just talking about Vespertine, you know, they're just playing Zen shit. And they're just like, you know, there's a whole different thing going on. But I guess you experience some of that to some degree, and how wild it is back there. People don't realize it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think I came in on, you know, 20 something years ago, you know, 24 years ago, came in on kind of the tail end of the real hardcore stuff, you know, and I think it's, you know, I was working with chefs that were coming from that, whether they were coming from the 3-star Michelin restaurants in France or, you know, just whatever. And they were coming from that world. And I think that's just what it was. It was all, the leadership was just all like, do it because I said so. Yeah. You know, it was all ego.
Chef owner kind of mentality, all ego, just driving, slave driving people. Yeah. It doesn't really exist anymore. Because it actually can't, because it just violates every right that a human has. Like literally, like it can't exist anymore. It's crazy. That
I think there was something to be said for the way it was set up, because like you understood what the rules were, you know? So I think there was, and especially if you're dealing with the very old school, like brigade system, like at least it gave you orientation on how to fall into place.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot in that way. But yeah, I think it's just there was a lot of chefs back then, and like they weren't concerned with being a mentor.
No.
They weren't concerned with, leading people, like really being a real leader,
It's a different time now.
Yeah.
What I will say though is, like, now looking back, right, that gentleman that we worked for, both my wife and I, we met there, taught us so much about passion, excellence, service, and, in a way, running a business, right? We brought a lot of that into our business back in the day. And then had to evolve like everyone else to deal with rights and stuff like that. You would work for us and be like, you screw up and get the fuck out. Like, you're done. Like, you don't get another chance. Like, that kind of, just driven, no bullshit mentality, but you evolve, but there is something to gain from that. And it's a bit sad that you don't find that anymore. Now everybody's, we got to worry about offending everybody with every little thing, but interesting business, man.
Yeah.
Interesting business.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is good because it has and it had to, but it moved a corner. And now what I'm seeing is like chefs and restaurant owners like being real leaders,
Yes.
like being leaders and mentoring people and like bringing people through and like doing it the right way. And it's not all like, it's not all butterflies and rainbows, but it's like, listen, there are rules within these rules.
Yeah.
I'm going to treat you this way, and that's what's needed.
I also think when you have a situation where there's maybe a little institutional money behind the restaurant, right, and the chef can actually, it's not his whole entire identity, life is at stake here with this family-owned restaurant, right? It's like, he has room to hire who he needs and add that extra personnel or experiment here, and has the money, because the margins are super tight. But I think, what it takes to open a restaurant today is insanely expensive. But like you said, these guys have a little more space. I'm not saying it's any easier, but they have that much more bandwidth to actually say, I do want to be a leader. I do want to mentor people, and I do want to show a better side of myself, that I don't have to stress to, this degree about what's going on in the kitchen and the restaurant in general. And I think that's what's allowed them to do that. And we see that now in all the great cities and stuff like that. So it's a nice little resurgence of what's going on in restaurants. So
yeah, for sure.
It's cool to see, man.
Yeah.
It's cool to see. I don't like that everything's corporate. So I don't like that the little guys put out that you can't have the great little, mom and pop restaurant like you used to. It's just too expensive. But I think they're finding a balance finally with, bringing in really strong talent, getting decent ingredients, or trying to, and making it, something special versus this kind of corporatization. But we'll see how it goes. That's why I like the world you're in, though, because someone like yourself can, like you said, consciously, do what you have to do and please the guests in a way that they're not really getting in the outside world anymore. And that's what's interesting about the space. How did you make the transition into kind of let's essentially call it the wellness world? I mean, you do breathwork journeys and stuff like that. You're super dialed in. You have the spiritual side to you. When did that start to bubble up in you?
Yeah, I mean, I think even, while I was still working in restaurants, it got to be a point where, the level of stress and anxiety and all of that stuff, like you just put it off and you just keep putting it off. Like, that's what it is. Like, Yeah. And then, it starts leaking into your life, into all the other aspects of your life and your relationships and even if you have relationships, if you have time for that, and I think, so I just started to recognize like what was happening, and it was just, I became very negative and detached, and there was just like a lot of negative things just like kept coming up and bubbling up. So I just started looking at it, and like, I just started diving in, like, cool, well, starting to learn, about Buddhism and meditation, and then diving into like neuroplasticity and what is that all about, and like changing your neural pathways, and diving into a bunch of different works and just trying things on to see if they're going to help me, because I think there was a point in time where I just kind of like gave up. I was just like, well, I guess I'm just not gave up, but I just came to the realization. I thought that like, oh, maybe I was just wired this way. Maybe I'm wired for negativity. Maybe I'm wired for, a certain disposition.
Interesting.
And so, I just started tapping into all the different things. And
was there someone in your life instrumental in kind of opening your eyes to that world? Because it, like, for me, it's like, well, I mean, for most people, typically there's an influence. You don't just wind up finding, or you could have, but typically you don't wind up just stumbling on Buddhism or like what you're saying, right? There's usually a catalyst in there somewhere. Now you have the stress part and you're starting to think, well, is this really what it is? But was there someone that kind of opened your eyes or opened some doors for you to kind of show you into that world a little bit?
Well, I think, my partner at the time was very like growth mindset, and maybe it wasn't on that level, but always trying to improve herself, always trying to like, grow and learn more and all that. So I think that
Bingo, yeah.
So that was like a piece where I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
She's learning from all of these people and all of this. So
interesting.
That kind of like helped me a little bit. And then just other people that I was, friends with, whether they be a martial artist or just an artist or, all these different people that, and I think once you start kind of opening up to certain things, you'll start to notice different people kind of orbiting your world in a way.
It's the open mind thing, right? It's like if you're closed off, that shit is all around you, but you have no idea it's there. Yeah. And if you have that open mind, and a lot of people don't, it's unfortunate. Yeah. So I think that's amazing. So that kind of just, you started to cultivate this thing that was going to help you in a way deal with this negativity, deal with this pain and stress that the business had brought on.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of time, and a lot of it was also to like, not understanding like my upbringing and how that affected things. And then the industry that I decided to dive into, just kind of like bringing that all back and like, reinstituting that in me. And so diving into all of that, and, but I tried I think for a long time, I was like just white knuckling it, like, just trying to like, mind over matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think and this was probably, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, until I found, the nervous system piece, it didn't really all make sense.
Interesting.
So the breath work really came into effect with like understanding nervous system and how to get regulated and understanding what your system is going through and understanding, your fight or flight system, your primal activity that's happening, understanding all of those things and then going, oh, okay. That's like starting to notice that like, oh, when this thing happens, I get like a spike, or when this thing happens, my body calms down, and like starting to learn your nervous system.
What do you think? I mean, that's hard for people. That was hard. I still work on that daily, right? That somatic connection to the feeling.
For sure.
How to, to understand what you're going through, how to process that, how to see inside yourself. What do you think opened that for you? Like, I mean, you have to really work at that,
Yeah, it's a practice like anything else, and it's a commitment like anything else. Yeah. And I think, I had just wanted to feel good, like I just wanted to
quest
feel
for
good.
Feeling good.
Just the quest for feeling good. And then I think, I had some pretty big stuff go on in 2021 when I was living in Hawaii. And I think that was, and thank God I had put in a lot of practices before all of this went down. And not to get into a big story about it, but just to give context and if, anybody gets some value from this piece of the story, in 2021, things happened in a very short period of time, but I got divorced. I got very sick from mold poisoning where we were living in Hawaii. Yeah. We lived in the forest. It was beautiful.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. Beautiful, amazing, living in a waterfall, but also moldy. And then, I had come back to LA just to touch base and see what was going on and what I was going to do. Because of that, had to get vaccinated. And whether you're pro or against doesn't really matter, but this is the experience that I had. Yeah. And as soon as I got back, I got crazy sick.
You're fucked up.
I got really messed up, and the laundry list of symptoms that happened after that, full neuropathy, and just I developed myocarditis.
Oh shit.
So major stuff that had happened, and through that experience it just kind of launched me into a full full dark night of the soul, full rite of passage in that sense, and I didn't have a choice. I didn't have from that point. It was just like, okay, like I was in and out of hospitals, had to leave my job, had to move back to LA, and of course you have a choice. Like, where do you go from that point?
Sure.
But at the same time, it was like, okay, well, here it all is. I was going through treatment physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
You're getting hit you got the trauma thing, you got the broken heart, you got the broken body, everything's shot.
Yeah. So it's basically the universe being like, here you go.
Yeah, you got gut punched. Yeah.
Yeah. We all get, gut checks here, and and whether we listen to it when it's a small gut check,
right, or
when it's a massive gut check. And for me, it took that very massive thing.
That's not surprising for most people. It does, but that's quite a story. So that really just, you're like, I gotta fucking do something.
Yeah,
I gotta dial in.
Yeah. So basically the whole year of 2022 was me, on that, like, physically, mentally, spiritually, the whole thing, and just very dedicated to improving my life in that way.
And you found working with the breath was probably the most powerful for you.
I mean, in combination with other things, for sure.
But to connect it all.
But yeah, I think that, once, and especially through everything that I had gone through, understanding the nervous system piece.
Yeah, of course.
And being able to ground and being able to, like, kind of calm down, bring everything into, like, present moment.
Yeah.
So we can deal with, like, what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And feel into that and be in your body.
Yeah.
Then everything from there is like, okay, cool. Next step.
How'd you kick the mold? Did you do like the Schumacher protocol? What did you do for the mold?
Oh, the mold? The mold was, just your binders and...
You did binders and all that shit.
All of that.
Just pulled it all out. Yeah. I mean, I've had it multiple times.
Yeah.
I've been in a lot of them.
And then all the other supports. So your glutathione and your quercetin and like all your antioxidant support.
Yeah.
But the binders, I think, was a big thing. And then a lot of the sauna work and detoxing is...
It's really the best way to do it. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple other things, but at the end of the day, it's binders and sauna and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So tell me about your process with the breathwork. Like, what is your... Because there's a lot of different modalities, right? There's so many different ways. What is your thing?
I think I adapt different styles and modalities within it, depending on. So I do work with one-on-one clientele. So in that, I will see wherever it is that you're at and kind of adjust to that and like what I feel might be useful in that time.
Yep.
But mostly when I'm doing events for groups, I'm doing more of a conscious connected breath. And it is in and out through the mouth. So it is still a little bit activating, but it's maybe not as intense as, say, holotropic, which is a 3-part breath.
Yes.
And I just feel within a group environment, that seems for me to be like, I feel most connected to that process because it's not taking you so far out. I think with breathwork, you can go from very grounded breathing techniques all the way to like
this aggressive shit that's
DMT like, inducing, psychedelic experiences, which all good. Yeah. I think all that spectrum, it depends on, I think so much of it is like, where are you at and what's useful for you right now? I see. So I think that's that. So with the conscious connected breath, it feels like a little bit of a balance. And I think going back to that, like we will have ceremony that's a little bit more, ethereal and just kind of, a little bit more out there and little deeper experiences. But in general, it is going back to that nervous system work. So I will start you off at what I call an anchoring breath, which is just a grounding breath, and then kind of bring it up and then bring you up to where you are you're activating a little bit of your fight or flight system in that. But you are in a safe space. Sure. You're in control. You know where you're at, and then bring you back down and ground you out before you leave.
Interesting.
So for me, it is that, and then through that whole experience, so say it's an hour experience. The more that you do that, the more you're starting to really understand your nervous system. Yeah. And you are having emotional release, and you are having all these other things. Yeah. But to really be in it, to really understand that, and so when you're out. Again, like kind of we were talking about in the beginning, like you're out in your everyday life and some guy cuts you off and honks his horn and, you feel that spike and you're like, oh, okay. Or whatever is going on, you can adjust, and you know what it feels like, what that feeling is. Because a lot of times we can't name it and we don't necessarily understand what's going on in our body. So I think in approach is kind of a lot of that.
I love that. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Very helpful. Have you done multi-day experiences?
I haven't led them yet.
Okay.
You know, I've been part of it. I'm right now building that out. So I'm actually going to go look at a place tomorrow for that. So yeah, so I'd definitely like to be expanding the offering to multi-day and then collaborating with other facilitators to bring that forward.
And then when you incorporate your food into it, because as I was saying in the beginning, you know, talented guy in the kitchen, right? I mean, able to work around all kinds of different dietary, I mean, like a lot of chefs don't want to be bothered with it, right? They just not interested. Like, you know, they just go shop at a shitty grocery store and bring, you know, they cook you what they think you want. That's not you, obviously. How do you incorporate that in terms of the group? I mean, is it more plant-based? Is there kind of a theme around the food? What is your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like whatever it is that whatever the guest is, whatever it is that you want to eat, you know. So it's like, so start with that. So like, are you vegetarian? Are you not? Like for me, I don't think, you know, cooking consciously and all of that doesn't have to do with like a specific diet. It doesn't have to do with, oh, you're plant-based or you're vegan or you're vegetarian or whatever the thing. It can be that, but for me, it's just so much more about being connected to the food, knowing where it comes from, you know, and maybe you don't need to know the farmer's name, you know, but like knowing,
we want to know,
but we want to know. So like, you know, but you know, and not everybody has that opportunity, but when I have that opportunity to do that, I'm going to do that. Yeah. And so I think the experiences that I'm building now are bridging that gap. And, you know, if it's just a dinner experience, like we're going to come in, we're going to have, you know, maybe it's a mocktail hour, maybe it's a cocktail hour, you know, whatever, feel that out. And then we're going to have some time where we're connecting, whether that's a fun game or whatever it is to get, you know, because you get a group of 12 friends together. There's a couple people inside that group that maybe don't know so much about the other person. So let's play some games and some prompts to get people more connected. And then we'll sit down and we'll have a couple plated courses, and then we'll kind of get up again and have more of like a family style thing, and then have some more prompts in that. And then maybe I'll have somebody have people switch seats for dessert so they can connect with somebody else. So it's just all about connection through the whole thing.
It's a massive connecting. Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah. I love that, man. Yeah. And it makes you feel amazing, I'm sure.
Yeah. And that's just like the environment. When I think about those things, it's like, how do I want to spend my day? Yeah. How do I want to I want, you know, because I think there was a big piece of me leaving restaurants where I was like, there was a minute where I was like, I'm not a chef anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. And it was very forceful. Yeah. So to be able to kind of like come back in and use my skills, use my gifts, and just bring them about in a way that feels good to me, like I think is also felt, you know.
100%. I think that's a beautiful way to live. And I think that it's awesome that you got there sooner than later. It takes people a long time. Like, that's why I do the show, right? I mean, yeah, I'm a musician, I do all this stuff, but there's a lot more in there that I want to bring together, right? I mean, all my passions into one place. And you're getting to do that with your experiences, which is awesome. And kudos to you for being able to put that together, man. And I will be definitely popping in to some degree on one of these things. Would love to do it in a cool location. Cool. It would be super fun. Yeah. But yeah, man. Let me ask you some quick fire, interesting.
I can't guarantee
questions.
I'll answer quickly, but
we
quick fire it away.
No rush. What would you say? And maybe this is obvious, but we'll see what you say. Any habit you've kind of created that's essentially changed your life?
I think it's the habit stacking. So I think it, a lot of times we want to get from A to Z very quickly, you know?
Definitely.
We want to just be like, no, I want to be better, so I'm just going to be better, right?
Definitely.
So for me, it's just like, okay, so what little things am I doing daily that are going to, over time, give me a different result? So I think for me, starting with breathwork, you know, and that could be a 5-minute session in the morning. That could be an hour session. Depends on how I feel that day. Yeah. So having that anchor and then stacking better habits on top of that. So that's using cool. That as kind of like the anchor, and like, here's how we start our day.
Yeah.
Here's how we start. Yeah. And then then it goes into like, okay, what did I, what supplements did I take? What did I put in my smoothie? What did I, did I go take a walk this morning? Did I, all the different things that we do, and I think to not be like crazy biohacky about it, it's because I think there's a point where it's just like, it's too much, you know? Yeah. And so as long as it feels good in your system, like what can you do to set yourself up for that day? So,
and and not beating yourself up if, something doesn't happen the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess is super important as well. Because a lot of people just, that's how they burn out on that,
Yeah. I think
I didn't get to do this. Fuck, I'm
right. Yeah, I think it takes a level of commitment and discipline in that, but at the same time, you also don't want to be the tyrant, like cracking the whip on yourself, right? Like you want to, you want to like have that discipline, but then again, like not like you're saying, like you don't want to shame yourself, because then it's just like this shame guilt cycle, and you're just like beating yourself up the whole day. Like just like, no, like I realized that like I did that thing or didn't do that thing. I knew what I was doing in the moment, so why would I go back and like shame myself for making that decision? And then point. Like, move on from there. Like, what else can I do today to make it better? Yeah. Or whatever.
Yeah. I love that, man. I think it's spot on. How would you say your relationship with failure is?
Failure. I mean, I think now I have a great relationship with failure.
It's good to hear. I'm so happy for you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think it also brings in like a lot of me growing up was, I was kind of a solo kid in a way, and I think a lot of it was just like learning things on my own. So I think learning through that, like I learned through a lot of failure in so many aspects of my life. Yeah. So I think failure is very important. I think it's a very important thing.
That elk wasn't going to break itself down when you were 9. You know what I mean? You had to figure that shit out one way or the other.
It wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, if you're failing, you're progressing. I guess it's got to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And you learn so much through that. It's like the same, I think failure is very similar to like constraint. There is like beauty in constraint, so it's like you don't have, just use a restaurant as an analogy, like you don't have this perfect, amazing restaurant that, you dream of. Well, out of that, cool. Well, I worked in a restaurant, and at that time they got a Michelin star, but fish and meat shared an oven. And pasta guy had like 4 burners, and like we had a salamander and like pantry, it was just like not the setup. Yeah. But through that constraint, we like, new techniques were developed.
You figured some new shit out.
We figured out some really cool stuff and cool ways to do things, and like new stuff was born out of that. So I think failure is similar in that.
What's a non-negotiable every day?
A non-negotiable every day.
It happens. It has to happen.
Yeah, I have to have some sit, whether it's 5 minutes, again, like whether it's 5 minutes or an hour. I have to have some sit, some time, and it could be 10 breaths. And it doesn't have to be breath work, but I have to have it some point throughout the day, sit with myself, close my eyes, tap in, and ask myself how I'm doing. I think that's just like non-negotiable. Wow. I have to have some anchor. Yeah.
That happens daily.
Yeah, and I think because I used to have a setup where I had to, I didn't have a choice, right? Sure. Like my nervous system was so out of whack. I was kind of all over the place in a certain way. So I had timers set. Like I had like 1 o'clock and 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. I had all these timers set throughout my day to remind myself to like, okay, sit, ground in.
Wow, is that how?
That's how I went through.
That's how you went through it.
A good portion, yeah.
That's actually smart.
Yeah.
I mean, most people can't even figure that out.
Yeah.
You gotta figure out ways to get yourself to take those actions or whatever step you're trying to take. And if it's timers, it's timers. Like it just has to happen.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cool. It's muscle like anything else. It's
of course.
You're a very fit guy.
Yeah.
It's like but maybe there was a certain point in time where you're hitting the gym every single day and going hard. But once you've created that structure and that path, now you can just like tap back in whenever you want,
Yeah, muscle is like that. Once you have it, you can maintain it much more easily than building it. Also think, any kind of talent based thing as well, like riding a bike, playing music. Although I will say drums, for what it's worth, if you don't play drums on a drum set for quite some time, your facilities do wane.
Yeah, you got to practice.
It's a very physical kind of thing. So you may be able to, play on a pad or something like that. But when you get back on that monstrous instrument, you got to be in shape to do it. But that's my 2 cents. But yeah, I get it, man. It's like you put in that time and you build that foundation, and then you can figure out a cadence for it in a maintenance level. But that's really smart. Got another one for you.
All right.
And it's probably my favorite question I always ask because I get so much good info here. Give me a book or two that you would recommend every dude should read.
A book or two that
one book, 2 books, whatever. Like what's a must read for, in your opinion?
There's so many good books. I think Iron John is a great book.
Iron John. Okay.
Iron John is a great book. It deals a lot with, it's a little bit esoteric and poetic in a lot of ways, but it deals with a lot of rite of passage work. And I think, through different experiences in our lives, we all go through different rites of passage, but it used to be a cultural thing that we used to do.
Yeah.
As young men going into like a rite of passage at a certain age, and now you're a man and you're expected to do X, Y, Z. And I think there's a lot of times where it's kind of lost in translation now.
That's really lost today's world. It's probably a great read for 99% of people.
Yeah, and it touches on different things like, bringing out your wild man and like still saying wild in certain senses, and just a lot of like more of the primal.
Actually, I haven't read
stuff.
it.
It's a great book.
So that goes right on my list.
Yeah,
immediately.
There you go.
You got one more for me?
Oh, geez, what am I? I think it's very, very simple, but right now I'm reading a relationship book. It's called Create the Love You Want.
Okay.
And it's by the folks that invented imago therapy. So just a really great framework for relationship. And it could be intimate relationship. It's mainly focused on intimate relationship, but that can be
applicable to.
But it can be brought out to anything. So that's one book that I'm just finishing right now, and it's great. It's a great framework for relationship and understanding your presets, your partner's presets, what you're both coming into the relationship with, and really starting to understand each other on those deeper levels.
Super smart.
Yeah.
Always improving, man.
Yeah.
Always improving.
Yeah, man.
I had someone on here the other day said he doesn't read. It's like, what?
What are you doing?
It was my brother-in-law. What do you mean you don't read?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all we do is read. But there's so much. There's so much to consume.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff.
We just built out we have a little library room in the house. Well, you were at the house, but I think at the time we hadn't completed the built-in shelf. Got a lot of books, man. Got a lot of books. Super important. I wish people would just get off the phone and get back in the book. So important, dude.
Yeah.
But they're great recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Well, I think we had a great chat.
This is awesome.
Love learning the stuff that I didn't know about you. I mean, it's super fun for me, and looking forward to hanging out again and doing some cool shit.
For sure.
And obviously wishing you the best on all these ventures.
Thank you,
super talented guy, and I think while I haven't experienced the breathwork stuff, his cooking, forget about it. I mean, that I can attest to. But I'm sure you kill it in every area. So
thank you, man.
And you're a great testament to evolution and how someone can start here and just by being an open book, essentially, have all these different experiences in life. So thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, or your Instagram handle, or whatever you want to say? Yeah,
I think the best way to find me is through Instagram. j.strubel, Strubel. You can DM me. My link tree's up on there. That's probably the best way to connect.
Thank you, brother. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Jeremy Strubel, everybody.